what I've heard is that, I heard about this, you mentioned this mediating, but that prior to this you had been much more of a divisive figure when it came to these issues, seen and perceived as someone who was sort of trying to, shut down affordable housing, shut down homeless shelters, in a fairly aggressive, divisive way.
I founded a homeless shelter for people with HIV back in the days when people with HIV could not get into nursing homes. My whole entire life has been an advocate for those disenfranchised, starting at the age of 17, back in the days of Texas when students who were not Caucasian could not join our clubs because you had to be voted in, and Caucasians were not voting in other people of different races. And so a group of us started a club. The president was a black student, a male student. So I've always been that advocate. And in the 2007 race, I was very insistent, and in WTTW, I've always been supportive of affordable housing, always. Where I differed is I wanted to make sure that affordable housing followed evidence-based best practice standards of what's going to make good housing, for a couple of reasons. One, it's better for the residents who live in that housing. Two, the surrounding community will have a much more positive feel for affordable housing if they see it done right. But three, and most importantly, we have very limited dollars on our affordable housing, and it's just very vital that we spend all those dollars in a very efficient manner. So for instance, I was very outspoken about the Wilson Yard housing, the family housing, and those reasons were HUD suggests that there be multiple entrances. I wanted multiple entrances for that housing, and the reason for that, speaking from the perspective of parents and their children, parents want to be able to recognize strangers coming in. That helps them feel safe. I wanted to encourage for new affordable housing, not existing, but new affordable housing. HUD recommends that we use non-elevator buildings. Again, you don't want children. It's better for children to not go up elevators with strangers. And ideally, you want playgrounds on the ground level, ideally. And so those were my concerns.
But the developer did drive.
They do.
Rich and poor live in
Yes,
a high-rise building, and parents make that choice. I'm sure those are commonly accepted standards, but those are not, I don't think those are things that should make or break a development. What makes or break a development is you have a bad developer who has a bad track record of running properties and developing them poorly. That's not the case.
I didn't file the lawsuit against the Wilson Yard housing. I objected to the approach because I did not like it that it was referred to as Towers of Poverty or another Cabrini Green. I objected, and I had very strict rules in my campaign that Uptown neighborhood, because Uptown is just a part of the 46th Ward, was not ever be referred to as a dumping ground because that's insulting. So it's always been done in a very respectful manner, always respectful. Again, I've been a strong advocate for those who've been disenfranchised, and that's those who are living in extreme poverty, those of different races, and transgendered, and the LGBT community. That's my history, and I will continue always to be an advocate for anyone who feels disenfranchised.
Can you repeat the question you guys?
Well, I don't know. The general question is sort of how do you balance the sort of more affluent folks in the ward who want gentrification versus the lower income folks in the ward. And I don't know if you want to just start off with Wilson Yards because on the heels of what.
Well, no, because what James kind of did right there was just run through his resume, but he didn't offer any solutions for the question that you asked.
Well, I'm fine with offering some solutions because I have plenty of solutions.
Well,
and actually, because I have a history of solutions.
Well, we can come back.
Yeah.
Thanks. To address the difference between affordable housing and market rate housing in the 46th Ward, one of the big issues that always comes up when you're talking about that is crime. And there is a misconception among a portion of the people who live in the 46th Ward that affordable housing equals crime. That's not the case. I think we would be able to overcome a lot of that us versus them in the neighborhood if we could really get a handle on the crime issue in the neighborhood. I've got a 4-point plan that's actually going to address the crime issues in the neighborhood. First and foremost, using my experience as working with the Drug and Gang Housing Department to go after the slumlords, pardon me, the landlords who allow drug dealers and gang members to operate in our community. There are buildings within the community that have gang members in them. We do know that there are 2 gangs that operate on either side of the 46, or on either side of Wilson Avenue, on the east side and the west side. Again, the shooting that was in front of Truman College last night was associated to that gang interaction. So I think what we really need to do is first and foremost, look at the individuals who are causing these problems and try to get them out of the housing where they operate out of. Now, there's an opportunity to work with the landlords to do that, but because of the laws currently, it's very difficult. So I want to work with not only the landlords, but also the Cook County Sheriff in trying to figure out ways for people to be removed from those properties who are causing problems both with inside and outside the building, but also then finding resources for these guys. We're very lucky to have the ceasefire program coming to the 46th Ward. Commissioner Bridget Gaynor was able to find money through the Cook County budget to provide us 1 year of funding for that program. I'm very concerned what's going to happen if we don't continue to find funding for that. So that's going to be one of my priorities, is making sure we have funding, assuming that that program shows results and is effective for the neighborhood, but I'd like to continue that. The other thing that I want to do is provide access, expand access to after-school programs. A lot of these kids in our neighborhood are getting recruited because they're getting out of school at 2:30 in the afternoon. These are the kids that need the most help in our neighborhood, but they're from the families that don't have enough money to pay $100 to $300 per child per month for the after-school programs. So we have to concentrate on that. Additionally, I want to focus on using the discretionary funds to enhance security measures in the 46th Ward. So those are some of my plans in terms of dealing with the us versus them of affordable and market housing.